Well, clearly someone hasn't seen Toy Story. Seriously, how could you miss that overbuilt cash cow? This week's cold opener featured yet another spoiler for the ending of this episode. Seriously, animators, do you not want people to watch your show? The episode proper opened with Majorika managing to slip out of the grasp of her captor using Looney Tunes physics for all of 3 seconds.
I will name him George, and I will hug him and pet him and squeeze him.
Things were looking a little better for the Ojamajo, with Aiko even off-screen making amends with her father. Okay, I know last time I said they should let up on giving Aiko all the drama, but you know, at the very least it would have been nice to see these two hug it out. That aside, they still needed to deactivate all of the other charms in town, and would need Majorika to supplement their spell like last time, and okay, what's with this one kid? I don't know, him just being behind Ojamajo and his weird walking cycle is really bugging the hell out of me. You best maintain that distance, Four Eyes. Anyway, there was still also the issue of cutting the antagonist off at the source. Speaking of who, Majorika was taking her morning shower. I can't tell if she's singing or if Scratchy just learned that he was gonna get fixed.
You'll have to be neutered.
She also made Heihei wash her robe, resulting in her dropping her crystal necklace. This couldn't have come at a worse time, as people had finally caught on to the negative side effects of her charms. Meh, just another day at Walmart. In all seriousness though, I do really like how this became a case of reality ensues, and as of course there would be people who would catch on to the defectiveness of Majorika's charms. It's honestly kind of frustrating when the regular civilians in fiction can't catch on to the obvious charlatan trying to sell them snake oil. Of course, the owner tried to implement an all-sales final policy, but with the current economy, yeah, that stuff ain't gonna fly. In the resulting chaos, Majorika's necklace got mixed up with all of the debris, which these 3 numbnuts ended up throwing out. Lala managed to learn about this little mishap while spying on them, though really with how they were arguing, I think the whole neighborhood could hear them. Lala relayed this intel to Majorika, who was left alone after Pop and the rest of her class went to the pool. Remember, these two mentor our protagonists. However, all of the evil backgrounds in the world couldn't protect them from an angry kindergartner. Okay, I don't know if that little weep was an ad-lib or not, but that was just brilliant. Anyway, Lala decided to also inform the Ojamajo about the situation, convincing them now was the time to strike, and oh yeah, of course, school is still a thing. So, let me guess, we're gonna spend the next couple of minutes with some sort of boring glow montage of them at school. Or they could just hit the fast forward button for me. Yeah, in a really charming little bit, they just sped through the remainder of the Ojamajo's day at school. It was both hilarious and also got across a ton of personality from our main characters and their class. I'll bring this more up at the end, but I think this really highlights the importance of some of the staff working on this show. Anyway, the Ojamajo made their way to the dump to look for Majorika's crystal, and yeah, you can tell they live in a small town in Japan. You know, if this were anywhere on the west coast, not only would that garbage be piled up to the skies, but there would also be all sorts of little things that children and adults should probably stay as far away from as possible. Fortunately for our heroines, they also had their new toys to make things just a little easier, and I gotta say, I really like this new stock animation a lot more than the one used on their previous ones. It just has a lot more energy, and the wand design itself is just great with that spinning top. Because let's face it, spinning features on toys are always cool because they get across the idea of energy being expended, plus they're just a lot of fun. With that, they managed to find the crystal as well as the creature from the Drunken Wu-Tang?
Wow, the watermelon monster!
Sometimes even I don't know where I get these references from. With the crystal in hand, the Ojamajo had a bargaining chip to win back the Beholdo or force Majorika to deactivate her charms. Yeah, honestly, I have to side with Lala on this one. I mean, I get that they're trying to portray the Ojamajo in a more noble light, but they could still deactivate the charms without Majiruka, which they will do as the cold opener already spoiled. So really, the priority now should be to cut off the source by taking back the Mahodo. Now, honestly, I don't dislike to see it all, especially considering what's coming up, but I just feel it necessary to point out any sort of logical fallacies because it's just me. Anyway, as a result, they could only take Majiruka's word that she would fix everything.
What a surprise!
Still, they managed to talk her into a battle by comparing her to Majiruka. In fact, their egging her on was so effective that it turned her whole face into a blood vessel.
That's disturbing.
Also, her rodent clerks decided to peace out for the remainder of the series, if I'm not mistaken. Thus, Majiruka was willing to wager the Mahodo's deed and the deactivation of her charms if the Ojamajo could beat her, but if she should win, then the Ojamajo would have to become her unpaid slaves for the rest of their lives. Okay, let's just get this out of the way. Majiruka is not that great of an antagonist. Not to say she's an ineffective villain, because if that were the case, I would feel nothing but apathy towards her, but overall, she's still not that gripping of a character. Many of her failings were of her own doing, and even her initial success was just a matter of buying out the Mahodo when it was on the market. She did produce a good conflict because of her charms, but other than that, the character herself has no charm in that she's just very two-dimensionally evil with no real charisma. Not helped by her ear-bleedingly screechy voice. Granted, it does make her obvious defeat here all the more satisfying, but not exactly for the right reasons. Like I always say, there's a big difference between the villains we love to hate and the ones we just want to go away. All that said though, the resulting witches battle, shall we say, was a lot better than a lot of modern Precure. I'm not kidding, even though this was long before the days of fisticuff magical girls, this was just a plain entertaining little sequence with a lot of comedy and creativity. In fact, it even started off with a literal book of dad jokes that the Ojamajo used to incapacitate Majiruka. Say, can I see that for a minute? Let's see here. Written by Arto Janai. Yeah, that's what I figured. From there, Majiruka countered with that one mid-boss from Mega Man X2 that was ultimately defeated when the Ojamajo used a triple combo spell to suck up the trash monster and even Majiruka to win the battle. Again, I'm not against less violent fights in Magical Girl anime, I'm against less imaginative fights. Throughout this little battle, the Ojamajo used actual tactics and even some clever teamwork to defeat a much stronger opponent, turning out something fairly gripping and really entertaining, you know, as opposed to something that's the same thing over and over again. Not gonna name any names, but you know who you are. To be fair, they also got a little help from Majiruka giving them advice from the sidelines, though in order to join in, she also had to reveal herself to Pop. Okay, I know it's not much, but I just love that little bit of Majiruka nodding as though saying, yeah, I could really use a cold one right about now. This whole episode really just has so many little bits of personality like that it makes it a real standout for me. Anyway, they defeated Majiruka and won back the Mahodo's deed. Though, being the absolute piece of garbage she is, she didn't disable her charms, but as I said, the Ojamajo and Majiruka took care of it themselves. With that, the episode ended with everything going back to normal, except for one little detail. This was a fantastic conclusion to a fun little story arc. I mean, not only did we get a very enjoyable little battle between the Ojamajo and Majiruka, but we also got so many little bits of comedy and personality that just made this one of the most outright enjoyable things I've seen in a while. Yeah, Majiruka's not that great of a villainess at the end of the day, but at least it made her downfall throughout this episode all the more enjoyable. So, not too surprisingly, the guy behind all of this great direction that I praised throughout the episode was the legend himself, Junichi Sato. While he has already directed a few episodes this season, including the first, this one was easily his best work so far. He knows that if you want to make the most out of an episode's time, then you have to inject it with as much personality as possible, even for little details that some people might not even pick up on their first viewing, but will if you make it entertaining enough for a rewatch. Of course, the animation director also helped to make things look good, which is not a hard task for Toshie Kawamura, a pretty well-known character designer as well as a great animator. And as a result, we got a hilarious and very imaginative episode. Again, the stuff they did in this battle without even raising any fists was just so much more entertaining than stuff I've watched recently. Sure, there was more than a little Ryu stock animation, but I didn't even mind that because even the new Wanda animations just had a ton of energy to them. Thus, even if the villainess didn't have that much depth to her, this episode and all of its charming little moments managed to make up for it. Easily one of my favorite episodes of this first season, and we still got a lot more to go. If you haven't seen it yet, I also did a little video about those other magical girls I brought up in this review, as well as how they were influenced by a bunch of dudes in some very colorful spandex. The Toy Trinity videos seem to go over pretty well, so I'll definitely continue that series, though it might be in between my next Precure series review of Gold Princess, as I do kind of want to talk about that series, especially its pink lead, before I go further down that rabbit hole. Though in the meantime, I might do a little mini review of something related to the Toy Trinity, but we'll see how that pans out. Regardless, look forward to it, and until then though, for that my friends, and how long have you been standing there?